How's it going, everybody? It's Pilot Fame, and we are back with another preseason FPL video, and today we're continuing our Team Watch series, and up next is second place, Liverpool. They were just short of Man City last season, but we will take a look at their attacking FPL assets as well as their defensive ones, as they were very valuable for us last season. They arguably have the best FPL player. It might be over my shoulder and Mo Salah, but it could also be Trent Alexander-Arnold. We'll be talking about them extensively, as well as what Liverpool are doing in the transfer market to help strengthen them that little bit more so that they can potentially eclipse Man City going into the new season. If you haven't done so already, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, as well as turn those notification bells on so that you can get the content as soon as it's readily available. Drop us a follow over on Twitter so you can keep up to date with any and all FPL news, and give us a follow over on Twitch so you can see when we go live for our preview, deadline, and impromptu FPL streams. We'll be continuing those 2 weeks today, basically. But at the time of recording, we will be doing a preview stream at the beginning of the week before the Friday deadline for Game Week 1 on August 5th. Now, without further ado, let's look at Liverpool's defensive assets. Oh boy, where do we start? Liverpool have some fantastically priced players, and we're going to take a look at some of their defensive assets first here to see where they stack up and how they're priced this season. If you look at the fixtures right at the top, the best possible fixtures you could arguably have, barring the Man United fixture, although they beat Man United, 5-0 at Old Trafford and 4-0 at Anfield last season, so even that might be an easy fixture for Liverpool, although United are a bit of an unknown at the moment with their new manager, Erik ten Hag. But Fulham away, Crystal Palace at home, Bournemouth at home in the first four, primed and ready for having 3 Liverpool players for those opening run of fixtures. And if we look at last season, 132 big chances, 490 shots inside the box, close to 98 XG non-penalty. They're just a team that scores from all over the pitch, especially the 2 fullbacks that don't really need to be mentioned, but we're going to mention them anyway because Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold have proved week in, week out, season in, season out, that they are some of the most valuable FPL assets the entire season, the way Liverpool play. I mean, Robertson and Trent are both on the set pieces for corners, indirect free kicks, direct free kicks. They are usually on them. And if you compare their prices to any other players in the game of that price point, you're not going to find anything much better, to be honest. Trent Alexander-Arnold, compared to any 7.5 million or 8 million midfielder, he's probably going to outscore them. If you compare Robertson to the likes of, let's say, Barnes as an example, in the previous episode we discussed him for Leicester, who's going to score more points, Barnes or Robertson? Well, Robertson's probably going to score more than Barnes, but if Barnes even has a crazy season, Robertson's still going to probably outscore him. So those 2 are currently in my draft, as well as Salah, who we'll talk about in the attacking section, because I think they're the most proven FPL assets. Diaz we'll talk about as well, may not necessarily be proven, but one player that was actually good for me down the stretch is Joel Matip. He was 5 million to start last season. He's come in at a slightly higher price point, 0.5 less than Virgil van Dijk. He could be a bit of an interesting one. Played a lot of games in the Premier League, but maybe the likes of Konate getting his feet wet kind of in the Liverpool team and seeing more of the European scene, maybe that changes this season. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But another one that I would like to mention is Alisson, who's also been dropped down in price, 5.5 million. He could be very, very good. And currently I have a 5.5 million goalkeeper. It's not Alisson, it's actually Ederson at the moment, the other Brazilian international goalkeeper. And I think they could be very, very underrated, especially at that price point. I mean, they're at the top of the charts almost every season because of the fact that they keep the most clean sheets. And I think that's a key factor there. Matip probably too much of a risk. I think Robertson and Trent definitely have to be considered by every FPL manager. I just don't see them going away anytime soon in terms of FPL points. They do have backups in Tsimikas and Ramsey, who we'll talk about in the transfer section. They're going to play most games. Yes, they might get subbed off earlier on in games now, but then that means the clean sheet's probably going to be locked in. And even these guys coming on the pitch for 30 minutes doesn't really matter. Liverpool can score at any time and they can score in bundles, and it's usually starting with these guys creating chances on the flanks. So I'm going to personally be heavily considering Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold. Trent hasn't left my draft since I first put him in, so he's locked in there. And we'll wait and see what other FPL assets potentially arise. But 3 Liverpool, I think, off the bat is almost a necessity. I wouldn't want to say it's essential, but I think it's kind of a necessity in some way, shape, or form. Now that we've checked out the defensive assets, let's look at the even more exciting options in the offensive attacking options. Now, as we mentioned with the season stats, Liverpool just continue to crush the charts with the amount of chances that they create and the amount of big chances that they create, and how pretty much funneled they are into specific players. Typically, the majority of the big chances last season came to their front three, and you usually pick between two of them potentially, or at least get the one that's on penalties and Mo Salah, and they will get the majority of those chances. Diaz has now emerged and come in at a much lower price than we anticipated, at 8 million as a midfielder. Diogo Jota, who you see on the graphic in the middle there, he's usually a decent FPL option, but he's now moved to a forward. He's more expensive than what he was last season, now at 9 million, and he also has competition in that forward line as well with Darwin Núñez. I think a lot of the time now that Mane has gone, we'll see Darwin Núñez playing through the middle or off the left. Jota typically plays through the middle or off the left. Diaz can play through the middle or off the left, so we're going to see a lot of competition on that one side, but maybe not so much on Salah's side, which will be actually quite good for Salah in terms of being, substituted now with a 5-sub rule is active this season for the Premier League, and it's pretty much staple across all leagues now and in European competition. But I do think Salah will get subbed off at times, but he's that good of an FPL asset that even at 13 million, he comes on for 30 minutes. He can score 2 goals and get an assist. I saw it happen at Selhurst Park. Everyone who had Mane, saw Salah was on the bench, was like, great, this is fantastic. Mane, I think, got a goal and assist. Salah came off the bench and scored 2 goals and an assist. So they are dangerous enough to do the amount of damage needed to be worthy of the captaincy option. The big kicker is going to be, do you go with Diaz or do you go with Robertson? I think most FPL managers are going to go with Salah. They're going to go with Trent. And it's just a matter of, do they go with Diaz or do they go with Robertson? Me personally, Robertson's a more proven FPL asset and showed that he was actually better statistically than Trent Alexander-Arnold over the run-in, the last 8 games or so. Then Trent Alexander-Arnold, he's also 1 million cheaper. The only issue is that it's easier to find cheaper 4.5 million defenders than it is to find cheaper midfielders. You have to go right down to 4.5, like Andres Pereira or Justice Silva from Brentford. And Diaz is that nice price point, that 8 million price point where there's a plethora of midfielders there, the likes of James Maddison, Mason Mount, Bukayo Saka, Dejan Kulusevski, Diaz himself, and the list goes on, where you can potentially swap to any of those midfielders. If you don't go with that sort of player in your FPL team, like the way I do currently, I have 2 cheaper midfielders, plus Salah, 5 at the back and 2 forwards, then you could run into a bit of trouble. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Diaz, I think, is probably going to start most games, and it'll be looking like Jota and Firmino are going to be more of the bench options, with Darwin Núñez probably playing through the middle and Salah on the right. But again, now they're playing with a proper out-and-out striker. They could change the system up, and we'll have to see how they play. Maybe more of the chances fall to the number 9, and then Jota and Darwin Núñez become more valuable than Salah and Diaz, as an example. That is still yet to be determined. Man City, as we'll get onto in a future video, also will have a similar sort of thing potentially happen to them. But that's enough about the current FPL assets for their attacking options. Let's see if they're bringing in any new options that could change our mind for this upcoming summer. Now, Liverpool have been fairly active both for ins and outs in the transfer market, splashing the cash on Darwin Núñez, who will probably, once he hits his basically kind of activations, as it were, in the contract, the add-ons, as it were, in his contract, could see his price go up to close to 100 million euros, which is approximately 85 million pounds. Initial price around 65 million pounds or thereabouts. Again, that's just an estimation based off Transfermarkt's fees. He is potentially a game breaker in the forward line as a 9 million forward. We haven't seen many cheaper forwards that have done well, or any of these mid-price forwards. He could potentially become that. He's much cheaper than the likes of Ronaldo, much cheaper than Haaland and Kane especially, and is slightly cheaper than Jamie Vardy. If he comes in and does really well, him and Jesus as an example, we could then put most of our money into midfield and have these 2 guys kind of running the team, as it were. But we'll have to wait and see. Hasn't looked as sharp in preseason from the little bits I've seen of him. But again, completely new system is going to be kind of how they're going to have to organize around him in a sense. Because Liverpool didn't play with a proper out-and-out number 9. Jota was kind of that, but often did drop off the line and was fluid in the front 3. Now they have a guy who's mainly going to run the channels and going to be more or less through the middle, if anything slightly off to the left. Could that disrupt the flow? We'll have to wait and see. He's coming at a big price tag. FPL at 9 million. It's probably a bit too expensive to take a gamble on him at the beginning. And there's probably more proven Liverpool FPL assets in Robertson, in Trent Alexander-Arnold, in Salah to go with him off the start. They've also brought in Carvalho as well, who came from Fulham for around £5 million. He is someone who Liverpool were looking to get in the winter transfer window to help bulk out their team and their squad. He's probably going to come in and mainly play if they go to more of a 4-2-3-1 system. He often plays in the number 10 role. I would assume he can play in the false 9, but we'll have to see how Klopp kind of deploys him. He's probably not going to see as much game time as the likes of the usual that play in the front three. And then we also have Ramsey as well, who's come in from Aberdeen. He is a 4 million defender. Now, keep in mind, if Trent Alexander-Arnold ever gets injured at any point, he's the backup. He will come in for Trent Alexander-Arnold, and then we could have a really, really crazy system where we now got 3.5 million plus for Trent Alexander-Arnold. Let's say if he, injures himself and he's out for 8 weeks, Ramsey's the immediate replacement. We now have 3.5 extra million in our FPL teams to spend, and he is guaranteed going to go straight into every FPL manager's team because he's pretty good from what we understand, and hopefully will fill the role like how Simicast does when Robertson's out. But will that mean more rotation? Potentially. Only time will tell on that. With the out, Sadio Mane, a big miss to the Premier League, has made his move to Bayern Munich. Probably his last big move in a sense. I think he's just gone 30. He was at the last year of his contract, like Mo Salah, like Firmino are this season. Although Salah has renewed at the time of recording. Firmino has not, from my recollection. And Mane will be a big miss. He looks to be going into a Bayern Munich team where he could be playing in a more central role like he did in the latter half of the season under Jurgen Klopp, and could be quite influential. But in terms of FPL, can't have Sadio Mane anymore, unfortunately. And then the other two outs could be quite key as well. 2 4 million defenders. One a centre back in Nat Phillips, who could be making another loan move or potentially a permanent move to Bournemouth, as well as Nico Williams, who was the kind of understudy, as it were, to Trent Alexander-Arnold. He could be going to Nottingham Forest, which would be another reason to look at a 4 million defender. We'll wait and see if they're fully starters in their respective teams and if they were to make those moves. Like I said, only time will tell. Liverpool are going to be a new invention, as it were, much like Man City, much like Man United. A lot of changes coming for those three teams, some more so than others. But we'll wait and see how Jurgen Klopp manages to wrap his head around this one. But let me just think down in the comments below, is Darwin Núñez going to be a success? Is he going to be important to our FPL teams this season? And which 3 Liverpool players are you looking to put in your FPL draft come game week 1? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Scout members area, the one place that you need to be tuned into for the upcoming FPL season. It has a wide variety of resources and tools that will help improve your FPL game today. It has a bunch of different members-only articles written by some of the best FPL managers across the globe, heat maps for all the players and positions, as well as player comparison tools, which will help you see side by side who is going to be more effective for your FPL team, fully customizable stats tables powered by Opta stats, and much, much more. Use the link down in the description below so that you can get access to the Fantasy Football Scout members area today. It'll help improve your FPL game. This video has been sponsored by Manscape, the best in male below the waist grooming. Make sure to check out manscape.com so you can see the latest and greatest updates to their lawnmower, as well as their performance package, and much, much more for all their gadgets and gizmos to help keep your family jewels looking as shiny as ever. Make sure to use the code FLAME20 so that you can get 20% off your next Manscaped order, as well as free worldwide shipping. Go check out manscaped.com today. And that's going to do it for this edition of Team Watch. If you haven't done so already, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and turn those notification bells on so that you can get the content as soon as it's readily available. Drop us a follow over on Twitter so that you can keep up to date with any and all FPL news, and give us a follow over on Twitch so you can join us for our preview and deadline streams. We'll be starting those back up 2 weeks today at the time of recording. It'll be less than 2 weeks by the time you see this video. as well as make sure to check out the Fantasy Football Scout members area. There's a link down in the description below. That's where all the stats came from for this FPL video, as well as all of our videos for the upcoming season. Thank you all for watching, and until the next one, take care.